On this table is about $55 worth of survival items from Walmart. I've got a whole bunch of different knives, a machete, all kinds of different stuff. We'll go through all of it and find out what you need in a survival situation, what you want in a survival situation, and stuff that might not be quite as necessary. So let's get into it. All right, when you're in a survival situation, the number one thing you're going to want to have is a blade. That's going to allow you to craft things in the wild. That's going to allow you to cut things, cut up meat. You really need some kind of tool. Now, while I make my own knives, I went ahead and got 3 different kinds of $5 knives. We're going to go through each one and see which one is the best deal. All right, first up, we got this Ozark Trail folding knife. Let me take this out of the packaging. Pretty easy. I really like the Tonto blade style, just as a personal design choice. Now, as far as bushcrafting knives, this thing, first of all, it's a little flimsy, not like super good. The folding is nice, opens up pretty well. Overall, I really like the visuals of it, but this is probably something I'd carry maybe at work. Not something I'd carry for survival, I don't think. We'll test the sharpness and everything here in a minute. Next thing up is going to be a multi-tool. It says 12 in 1. All right, first thing, the pliers. This spring is very, very weak, but I mean, it still works pretty good. It's got decent grip on it. The metal feels a little flimsy. I wouldn't trust this for heavy duty use, but I mean, it is a $5 knife. You can't really expect too much. It looks like it's got, first of all, a pretty bad design flaw. I mean, I cannot grip this knife at all without basically grabbing the blade of it. So I'm not a fan of that. It's got a little serrated blade. Doesn't feel very sharp at all. Looks like you got a smooth knife over here. Again, not very sharp. Screwdriver, can opener, all your stuff. I would probably say so far, not a fan. Only thing that this is good for is the pliers, in my opinion. You really do want to have some good pliers. Also, that I guess could be used as line cutters. But I think a regular knife would be better than this one. I mean, if you could take both for $5. It's not bad. I'd put this in my tackle box, but I would not be using the knife parts. I'd really just be using this as foldable pliers. The rest of this is kind of junky. The metal is that cheap stainless, which I imagine most of these knives are going to be, but I would not use this very often. I think this one's a lower quality. Definitely would prefer the first one just because I have a better cutting edge, but as far as crafting and stuff, this one would be a little bit more useful. All right, last up is this fixed blade. Now, I prefer a good fixed blade over a folding blade, just because, first of all, I think they're built much stronger. Something full tang is what you really want when you're crafting. Also, it comes with this little plastic sheath that you can put on your belt loop. I like that a lot. It releases pretty good. It feels pretty sturdy. I know it's just plastic, but it's actually kind of a little bit tougher of a plastic. It's got a tiny bit of bend to it, but not much. And this feels really nice in the hand. I get a good grip. It's got those ridges there on the back. Overall, this one's my favorite knife so far. We'll test the sharpness here in a little bit, but it doesn't feel exceptionally sharp, but that's something you can fix later on with a knife sharpener or something like that. I think for $5, this is a pretty good deal. All right, and lastly for the blades is this massive 18-inch machete that was only $5. Now, I imagine that means that this thing is gonna really be bad because it's the same price as those knives over there, but we're gonna test it out. Well, that packaging wasn't very tough at all. All right, this folded up as it's a really soft sheath. Honestly, this thing is junk. This sheath is junk. But let's check the knife itself, or the machete itself, I should say. All right, one problem you usually get with machetes that are cheap is that they are not sharp towards the tip at all. I mean, they make these in mass quantities, so it's never really sharp, and that front is super dull. It's a little bit sharp here. This thing is going to be a piece of junk before sharpening. I mean, you can see the way the bevel is not good at all, even on camera here. So for $5, not bad. You can sharpen it. You can definitely make it worth the $5. We'll test this thing out before I sharpen it, and then I'll sharpen it and test it out later too. But very, very flimsy, and it's got a cheap, very not ergonomic plastic grip here. I don't think this thing's gonna last very long, to be honest with you. All right, next up, and this is actually the most expensive thing on the list. This was about $12. It's a Life straw. So it's one of those water filtration straws. Pretty self-explanatory. You'd unplug this, dip it in the water, unplug this, drink. Filters everything out. Pretty standard. You want to have one of these if you're going out in the wilderness without a way to have water. And definitely something you want to carry with you at all times if you're out in a survival situation. So even though it is the most expensive, it's probably the most crucial thing to have, because you can only survive 3 days without water. You can survive without food for a good bit longer. You need shelter and you need water before you ever need to worry about food. Now, speaking of food, this is a little fishing kit. This one's for creeks and ponds. So in a survival situation, you may not be near a giant body of water and you want something that's going to be able to catch you some small fish for food. So that's what I got this for. Inside this kit, there's a bunch of soft plastics and then some terminal tackle. So you've got these little soft plastic crawfish right here. You got some different colored crickets. You got some weird little centipede looking baits. Some weird little squid-ish looking baits. I don't know what those are. I'm really excited to try these out. If y'all want to see me do this in a separate video where I just test out this kit, let me know in the comments down below. Also came with a bobber, some jig heads, some hooks, some split rings. I don't want to dump these out. But this is probably going to be the cheapest, easiest kit to use for catching smaller fish. You can catch bass with these. You'll probably end up catching a lot more bluegill, but bluegill and baitfish are going to be a lot easier to catch. You'll be able to catch more of them. And if you're in a survival situation, you're not going for your personal best bass. You're going for whatever you can get to eat. So this is what I would suggest. A smaller kit that comes with a lot of different lures to use in those waters. You can also use live bait, so these soft plastics aren't necessary. I also will show you that here in a second with an alternative setup. But this is just what I would use because it's all in one package. And if you can't find bait, this is a good option for you. The alternative could be something like this, which is some Eagle Claw panfish hooks. This comes with 50 hooks. I believe this was about $4. And then this was about $1, which is some split shot weights. Now this here doesn't come with a bobber. It doesn't come with any soft plastics. And it's the same price as the kit I showed you a second ago. So you have a lot more hooks with this, but you wouldn't have all of those extra baits to use in case you can't find worms or something else. So this is a good option, but for the same price, you can get that entire kit over there. So I would go with that kit over there. Let me make sure I'm pointing to it on camera. And that's what I would use for your fishing stuff. But for fishing things, you also have to have some line. So I picked up this 8-pound test Zebco line. It was like $2.50 or so. Always keep some kind of fishing line with you if you're making a survival kit. Fishing line can be used for setting up shelters. It can be used for tying stuff. It can also be used for fishing, snares, anything like that. Fishing line's low profile. It's really good for a lot of different projects. So I would highly suggest making sure you have some fishing line in your survival kit. We also want to get some paracord. This is really good for making shelter, for tying up things that need to be a little more sturdy, and all kinds of different projects. You can even make fishing lures out of paracord. Paracord is super essential for all kinds of different projects when you're doing bushcrafting. So I'd highly suggest this. This was about $5, so it's not too expensive, and you get, let's see, 50 feet. So that's a good little bit of rope there. Next thing I want to talk about is a fire starter. So this is a little flint and steel setup. This little setup was also $5. So I haven't tested it out yet. Obviously, I just unboxed it, but oh golly, that throws out a lot of spark. Okay, that actually might be pretty good. I'll pop up a video up here as I'm talking about it of me testing this thing out. But I don't know, I'm kind of, now that I see it, I think it's actually pretty good. Now, it comes with this rope attached to it, and then it kind of folds into itself like that. So it's very low profile, should pack away pretty easy. Honestly, might put this thing in my car somewhere, just in case I don't have a fire starter with me or I get stranded somewhere. Definitely pretty cool. You can stick it back out, strike it out, and ready to go. For $5, I mean, you can buy like the full big ferrocerium rods on Amazon, and they're pretty cheap. But for a nice little kit, this thing will last a good few lights. I would recommend getting something portable like this. Actually very pleased so far with the items. And that brings us over to our last item, which is something that a lot of people kind of overlook. And that is a first aid kit. So this is a little waterproof first aid kit. It says it comes with 30 pieces for cuts and scrapes, lacerations, bites, and stings. So let's get this thing opened up. All right, just kind of unlatches here. God, that was, oh, well, it helps if you take these things off. All right, let's check what's in here. We got some sting relief wipes. So I guess that's some kind of antiseptic something to help with the stings. All right, I'm just gonna pull everything out of here. It's probably gonna be super hard to stuff it back in. But all right, we've got some alcohol prep pads. These things can actually, in a pinch, be used for a super good fire starter. So that's also really good for fire starter. 6 of those. We've also got some antiseptic wipes. Got some shear bandages, a splinter remover. I've never actually heard of that. We'll have to test that out one day. I get tons of splinters when I'm doing my woodworking. Got regular waterproof bandages. Got some gauze pads. So all of that kind of packed together. I think that kit was about $6, I think. Now let's see if I can force this back into this package. Let's see. Push. Okay, cool. Now a little added bonus is that this thing is also a waterproof container that you could use for other things other than just first aid kits. There's also this upper area where you could put fishing line or something else. You could actually set this up as not just a first aid kit, but a way to store all this other stuff. All right, so I'm gonna test out the fixed blade versus the folding blade. Now, I will say the folding blade feels a little bit sharper, which we'll test that out here in a second, but it is very much flimsy. It's not like super flimsy, but you can see it's got some bend to it. You do not want that in a bushcrafting knife. But I've got some paper plates. I don't have actual paper. We'll see if they cut smooth. I mean, it doesn't cut bad. Could be worse, could be better. Not horrible. I mean, I know it's the factory edge, so it's not going to be like perfect, but that would work for cutting line and rope and stuff like that. Probably even you could skin something with it, but not super impressed. But also it was $5, so for $5, I'd say it's cool to carry with you, but not for a survival situation. Next up, this one. I mean, as you can tell, much more beefy. It's a full tang knife. It's balanced really well, actually, and it feels comfortable in the hand. Those little ridges right there are nice to hold the thumb. Okay, I was definitely correct. It's not quite as sharp as the other knife. In fact, it's kind of just ripping. Golly, yeah. This is not very sharp at all. You can see the cuts that it is making are very rough. This would take a lot of sharpening. Look at that. But the thing is, you can sharpen a sturdy knife and it'll work good. You can't really sharpen a flimsy knife and make it not flimsy. So even though it is very dull right now, I think I'd rather sharpen this one and use it than have to use a flimsy knife like this. As far as the multi-tool goes, honestly, you're just wanting this for the pliers. The knives are nothing to write home about, and they're super dull. So I don't even think it's worth testing them. They were super dull on the finger. So this would be cool for the pliers, but you're really buying $5 pliers and a bunch of junk. It'd be better if you just bought regular pliers that didn't have all this extra stuff. But as a little tackle box item, it's not bad. We're gonna be trying out the $5 machete. It's not good, not particularly great, but it's not bad. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna try the back of it. Yeah, so not sharp at all. The tip of it is actually so blunt that it's flattened. You can't really see it on camera, but it's actually flat all the way till about here, and that's when it starts to kind of get sharp. So let's see if we can chop some of this down. Okay. If you hit right here, it's pretty good. Handle is not comfortable. Honestly, I'm not too impressed. I know it looks really good, but this is a groundsel tree bush, and this stuff, I mean, even with your bare hands, it snaps like super easy. So for this to not be easily cutting through something like this in one slice, it's pretty bad. It's not very good. I mean, it is $5, but
Personally, I think if you sharpen this, it's good, but out of the box, it's not really worth very much. But once you sharpen it, I think it will do pretty good. I mean, it's got a good bit of heaviness to it. The handle, super uncomfortable. I am not a fan of this handle at all. Whenever I hit stuff, it wants to twist out of my hand. This is not something I'd really desire to work with very much. But for $5, it's not horrible. Just for a machete, it's bad. For a $5 machete, it's pretty good. Golly. Definitely needs some sharpening. All right, so if I could only take 7 things with me, here's what I would take. I would first of all take the Life Straw. That's something you absolutely have to have. You need something to clean your water. Life Straw. I would take the fixed blade knife. I think that's the nicest of all of the knives. You could do a lot more bushcrafting with this than you could with any kind of folding blade or these really cheap kind of knockoff blades. I'd also take the machete. That's going to be item number 3. There's going to be a lot of big stuff that this knife might not be able to handle, and I would need a big blade to maybe clear off some stuff or anything like that. I'd also take the fire starter. You need some way to cook your food. I would take the fishing line. I would take the creek fishing kit. And as my last item, I don't know. I want to go with the paracord, but a medical kit is also extremely useful. So I think I would go with the medical kit, just because a single scratch when you're out in the wilderness can get infected, and that can be really bad. You're going to want a way to clean your wounds and bandage yourself up. So that's what I would pick as my last item. Not that any of this other stuff was bad. I mean, honestly, I think this is going to be my new work knife just because it's cheap, and if it gets messed up, I don't care. And then I'll probably put this in my tackle box. And of course, I'll use the paracord and the weights and hooks and everything. But I just think that the Creek Pond fishing kit is so much better than just getting the hooks and weights. You're going to have fishing line, and I feel like just all of this stuff is really necessary. But anyways, guys, if you'd like to see me do a 24-hour survival challenge using just these items, or at least a few of these items, let me know in the comments down below and we can make it happen. Also, if you enjoy the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps the channel a lot and allows me to do more videos just like this. Also, if you're looking for some awesome merch, we've got hats and shirts on my Etsy page, which you can check in the channel description or the pinned comment down below. And as always, guys, Jesus loves you, I love you, and have a great day.